Hello once again, it's Matthew here from matthewnorthmusic. Thank you for watching my latest video. Not a very big video this, it's just a bit of fun more than anything else. But if you do like the kind of videos I make, be them about music, electronics, technology or whatever, then please hit the subscribe button. It really does help the channel to grow. And if you like anything I do, please share it on social media because that also really helps the channel. It doesn't cost you anything, everything I do is free. Anyway, getting on to today's subject. Now, as you can possibly see behind me, I quite like cassette tapes. Now, lots of people are going to say, oh no, cassette tapes are terrible, cassette tapes were always awful, they were always chewing up, blah, 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 blah. Well, my view on cassettes is this. I have cassette tapes that my father recorded in April 1972. They were Scotch tapes and they still play to this day. Now, if a cassette that's older than me by a few months can play, then I'm sure most cassettes can play, as long as they haven't been kept in the damp. If they've been kept in the damp or got sticky, you can bake them and play them, but that's a specialist thing to do. Otherwise, you probably have to chuck them. But you know what? Even a humble Maxell UR90 cassette like this, if you put it into a good deck and set it up properly, you can get a decent recording on one of these, and you can pick these tapes up for no more than £2 each. Now, the problem is you can't buy a decent cassette deck. And I'm hearing all those people now going to their keyboards, typing away, saying, oh, yes, you can buy a TIAC from Richer Sounds for £450 and they're brilliant, blah, 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 blah. No, you can buy a TIAC cassette deck or a Tascam cassette deck. They're branded as both. But basically it's the same deck. You can either get a twin tape version or you can get one that's got a CD player on one side and a cassette deck on the other. But they are not what I would call a good cassette deck. Number one, they're only a single head machine, so you can't monitor the tape as you're recording. Number two, they don't have Dolby noise reduction on them. But it's actually the first one I think is the more important, because actually most of the time these days I don't record with Dolby, I just record the tape straight, because the only hiss you need to worry about is the sound of snakes. So anyway, today's video, I was going through AliExpress, as I do quite often, because I do find AliExpress very useful for getting electronic components. I like to buy odd kits from there, stuff for the channel, and other things that, you know, might turn out useful tools, stuff like that. You know, some of the tools have been good, some of the tools have been rubbish. Same with things like effects pedals for guitar. Some pedals I've bought have been really good, others not so. But I've been looking at music on AliExpress and there's a lot more of it on there, and most of it, if not all of it, is counterfeit. And by that I'm talking about box sets, CD deluxe box sets, things like the Beatles in mono, the Black Sabbath complete album collection, the Pink Floyd Discovery box set, which, you know, is years old. I mean, that came out, what, 15 years ago, something like that, whenever they did that Why Pink Floyd campaign. But they're selling tons of them on AliExpress, and generally you get what you pay for. The quality's not brilliant, but it'll do. I don't know if the CD box sets come as straight clones of the original CDs or whether they're like MP3 files that have been manufactured. I don't know any of that. I have read reviews of a lot of these box sets, and some say some of the CDs skip, others say they don't. But, you know, takes your money, pays your choice. Oh, I can't remember that. Anyway, today I've got something by the Beatles. Now, there are no, at the moment, cassettes of the Beatles in manufacture, apart from the Now and Then single. That did come out as a cassette. But other than that, I don't think there's been much in the way of Beatles cassettes for a very long time. And so when I was on AliExpress, I was looking at these cassettes. Now, the ad kind of gave the impression that you bought three together, and the three titles were Abbey Road, Please Please Me, and I think Revolver. As it turned out, you only got one tape. Unfortunately, I think the one that I've ordered was Abbey Road. Now, it's arrived in this bag with something else. And so we're going to open this up. And the other thing is something I found quite bonkers. And number one, it's not what I ordered because it's the wrong colour, but it's a t-shirt of the Sisters of Mercy. Now, as many of you know, I'm a big fan of the Sisters of Mercy. I'm friends with some members and former members of the Sisters of Mercy. But this t-shirt, it's called Sins and Secrets. Now, that is the cover of a bootleg 7-inch from the late 80s, which had studio recordings of Emma and Knocking on Heaven's Door, which I think you can find on the Victim Circumstances tape. Now, why in China they would take the artwork from a bootleg and put it on a t-shirt, I have absolutely no idea. But the other reason this is interesting is that is the same piece of artwork that Joe Hampshire used for the tickets for the first few Whitby Goth weekends. So, you know, it's got historical interest. And actually, the fact it's red, you know, that's quite cool. I mean, it's got that whole sort of smell of fresh printing. But you know what? That wasn't bad for £7. But that's not what the video's about. The video's about what is in here. And this package is, well, it's quite a lot in it, really. What have we got? As they've double wrapped it, and because everything sort of gets sent from China and then sort of re-imported. Now, it's in that, and then it's in this. So they've actually packed it very well, which is very nice to know. However, I'll tell you what, let's point the camera down and I'll get this open with some scissors. And I'm sorry the light's a little bit funny, but it's that time of the day where we've got sunshine, well, not sunshine, but natural light coming through the window, and I've got a light on behind me as well, just to try and brighten things up a bit. But you know, you should understand what we've got here. Oh, this is quite difficult to open up, you know. There's a lot of bubble wrap and sellotape, so you know they've certainly made the effort in making sure that this gets here in one piece. And actually, I found that with a lot of that stuff from China, is it does tend to get packed quite well. So that's gone, and we've got another piece of bubble wrap, and inside there is the Beatles' Abbey Road on cassette tape. And even though it's obviously not an official release, that's the first time I've seen a new full Beatles album on cassette for a very long time. So let's open it up. I've got a cellophane seal on it like normal cassettes. And oh, it has got a little pull stringy thing. I didn't notice that to start with. Oh well. Is it on the back? Just pull this out. There we go. I'm sure Tony at Cassette Comeback will not approve of how I open that, but never mind. Okay, so how does this look? Well, it's got this piece of card here that wraps around and opens up like this, and it's got a sort of much earlier picture of the Beatles on there. Here we've got track titles. Interestingly, it's got Hey Jude tacked on the end, which is, you know, not to be expected. I think the rest of the track listing is as per album, Come Together, Something, Maxwell's, Oh Darling, Octopus's Garden, I Want You, Here Comes the Sun, Because, You Never Give Me Your Money, Sun King, Me, Mr. Mustard, Polythene Pan, Bathroom Window, Golden Slumbers, Carry That Weight, The End, Her Majesty, Hey Jude. So there you go, you got a bonus track on there, which is quite nice. Now let's have a look at the cassette itself, and it's green, and it looks quite nice. I have to say, the label printing feels very nice. There's a little bit of a bubble there. It kind of reminds me a little bit of those cassette tapes that you had in the 80s that were made in like the Middle East. It's got that kind of feel to it. It's still got the tabs in at the top, so this is obviously, you know, cheap duplicator stock. But first impressions, this is actually not too bad. Now, what else have we got? Well, we've got a little booklet. And on this booklet, we've got all the lyrics. Including the lyrics to Hey Jude. I think that's quite a nice little thing, to be honest. Now, will this... No, now the snag we've got, of course, is that this won't fold up into the box, which is, you know, a shame, because, you know, you don't want these things to get tatty. However, you know, with the cassette in there and the wraparound, like that, I think that looks quite good. I must admit, I think, you know, it's something a little bit different. And it's just a shame that they didn't maybe modify it to maybe go in a cassette box that doesn't have the locator pins in, so that you could then sort of fold it up and fit it in the case. However, where the folding is on the side, it might not go in. Having said that, I've got a box with the locator pins not in it. We can just try and see if this will actually fit. And if it does, then you know what to do if you buy one. Here we've got a box, so I'm going to take this out and I'm going to pop it in here, and we're just going to see if it will all fit. Now, what worries me is whether I crease the end there, and the answer is yeah, I probably will. So even if I swap it round, maybe, will it go in? And the answer is no, not really, because you've got the end sort of sticking out a little bit. So no, that's not going to work, sadly. But you know, apart from that, for a counterfeit product from China, you know, the actual packaging I think is very good. Now we need to know, of course, what does it sound like? Well, I'm going to pop it on the cassette deck and I'm going to have a quick listen. Well, the annoying thing is, of course, I can't actually play any of this on the channel because obviously it's copyrighted. And so I can't really, you know, my first impression of it is it sounds like an old tape. It's not terrible at all. You know, it's in stereo. It sounds like it was duplicated on a deck where the heads were aligned, and it doesn't sound too bad at all. Now, this is going to be no acid test, but behind me, I've got other Beatles albums. And what I'm going to do is, if I grab that one, this is a copy of Abbey Road, which is obviously a fairly early one. It's not got the green paper labels, it's got the white ones. And I'm just going to play a little bit of this, and just to give me an idea of, does this sound any better or any worse than the Chinese knockoff. I don't actually have one of the more recent versions, which was the XDR cassettes that came out in the late 80s, and I think they carried on manufacturing them well into the 90s. But it'll give an idea. Okay, right, I've now played a bit of this and I've played this. Now, I've only listened to Come Together off both cassettes, and there's not a massive amount of difference between the two. This one has definitely got more high frequencies and it sounds a bit crisper, but it also has a little bit more tape hiss. This one, you know, quite boomy, quite bassy. I mean, there's, you know, a good solid amount of bass on this. Neither compare to listening to this album off a CD or the original LP. I'm a big fan of the original CD version that came out whenever it was, 87. I think that's a terrific listen. If you want to hear the original version of Abbey Road, I would go to that every time. But it's not terrible. It's not awful. Now, these things are not official releases. They've come from China. They are relatively expensive, I think, for what they are, because I think even though I bought something else, a t-shirt with it to get the free postage, it was still about £7. Now, there are other Beatles related albums on cassette on AliExpress. There's John Lennon Imagine is on there, and a few others. It's a curio, is what I would say. It's a fun thing to have. I think the artwork on this, from the AliExpress images I've seen, is better than the Please Please Me one, or the actually, it might have been Sergeant Pepper, not Revolver. I can't actually remember. But I've looked at a few other artists, and for example, this Pink Floyd one again has the fold-out cover with, you know, quite nice-looking artwork. So, you know, they've gone to some effort to make something that you would actually think is probably a collectible, because I think that is a collectible. They're probably not going to be around forever. They look quite good. I quite like the design of the case. It's a shame that the label is slightly bumpy there. It hasn't stuck down properly, but I think that's part of the charm. I mean, these are definitely cassettes that you would file in the same section as the knockoff tapes that were being made in the Middle East in the 80s. Okay, here's another thing. Here's our Beatles tape. Now, as I said, I quite like the packaging on it. It's got screws holding the case in, which again is kind of a sign of a little bit of quality. And I've got some other pre-recorded cassettes here that I've pulled out at random, official ones. Now, this was the last proper Duran Duran album. Now, this is also in green. It doesn't quite have the same housing. Obviously, it's not see-through. And it's got the lines along here. So I don't think it's the same tape stock. Although this doesn't have screws in it. It just has a welded case. But there's that one. And then I've got this one here, which is the last studio album proper by The Who. Now, this one, like this one here, does have the screws in the corner and does have a printed label and has the same sort of holes in the same place. There's a screw hole there and a screw hole there. So I don't know if this is true or not. This is just a hunch and a theory. But I don't know where modern cassettes are manufactured. I mean, this one, for example, says it's encoded in Dolby. Now, where would a tape duplication facility be able to do Dolby unless they've got a load of old decks? Which is possible. It might be that there's a tape duplication place with like a load of old 90s decks or something, and that's what they use to transfer. However, this tape has no retainers in the end. So I would have said this would have been done on a more professional duplicator that didn't go searching for the locators. Having said that, this one's actually got the locator broken, so maybe this was done on a machine and they've just pushed the locators out. Actually, I think it's probably more likely. So, but the point I'm making is, could these have been manufactured in the same facility that manufactured these and these? I think that's a possibility, because the sound quality of this and the sound quality of the Duran tape and the sound quality of the Who tape, they do have similar properties. They're quite bassy, but then that's because if you're using ferric tape, it will be a bit more bassy and less toppy. The levels are fairly consistent on them all. So I am wondering if these are actually all manufactured in the same place. These obviously unofficially and these officially. I don't know. It's just a theory. If anyone else has got an idea like that, please leave a comment. Anyway, I thought I'd just show you this. So, as I said, you know, I bought something so you don't have to, but, you know, you might want to buy it. It's on your own head. Because remember, these things are not official releases. These are counterfeit bootlegs. However, on the same token, you can go into HMV and you can buy CDs on various labels that also contain bootleg material, because they are everywhere. I'm not going to talk about the labels or anything, but the general rule of thumb is if the CD has the word broadcast in the title, because they're using the excuse that if something's been broadcast on the radio after 25 years, you can release it, which I think is a bit of a dodgy ground legal term. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's the excuse that's being used. Then they call it the classic broadcasts. However, many of these albums, I mean, I've certainly seen Sisters of Mercy albums, Pink Floyd albums, Beatles albums that are just full of either outtakes, audience recordings or whatever. They're certainly not broadcast as they advertise. But anyway, that's this. Hope you found this interesting. If you did, give us a like, give us a follow and all that good stuff. And I'll catch you on the next one.